sat here with my colleague, Dr. Roy Jackson, and we've been talking about the idea of a caliphate in Islam. Now, we've been talking about that because there's been this declaration by ISIS, or this group in Iraq and the area, that they want to announce the re-establishment of a caliphate. Now, that has drawn a lot of press attention and seems to resonate very deeply in the Islamic world. Why is the term so powerful? What's the strategic deployment of that term about?
Yeah, well, I suppose because for nearly all of Islamic history there has been a caliph, or at least one.
Right.
And I suppose, so we're talking, 1,400 years or so of the existence of a caliph. And it's only ceased to exist, officially anyways, for 90 years now, since 1924. And I suppose since then, despite that, there have been occasional calls for a new caliph. There have been various people who've claimed to be caliph, and this is one example of that. As someone who said, "I'm a caliph, follow me." But on the whole, they're not given a great deal of weight these days. But I think again, it's important, I suppose, because it's the idea of what the caliph symbolises. It's more of a symbol than actual has real power. It has been that way for most of Islamic history, but it symbolises the unity of Islam, the idea that it's not divided by nationhood or anything like that. It's one nation under one ruler, under one political leader, if you like. So it's always been important from that point of view.
So it's an important kind of call to be united by your primary identity that transcends your national, your ethnic, your personal factors, and your being a Muslim comes first.
Yes,
so it's
that's right.
Sort of pull that together.
That's right. Yes, yeah.
But on one hand, it's very much about unity and the unity of Islam and the unity of Allah, of course, are central themes in Islamic thought. But at the same time, it can be seen by others as quite divisive, and particularly many Shia Muslims don't feel the same.
Yes. I mean, many Shia, and in some cases Sunni as well these days. I mean, the thing is, Islam has moved on quite considerably, and certainly for the past 90 years or so, since the non-existence of the Caliphate. You have all kinds of different Islamic organisations now, federations. They have kind of the equivalent of the United Nations, etc. They have these various organisations that help to unite Muslims. And of course the whole debate about the role of democracy has increased considerably since then, which has been indicated in various happenings in the Arab world. So the whole idea of having one individual as a ruler has started to recede even within Sunni Islam. And of course you're absolutely right, within Shia as well, that they've never really recognised the idea of a caliph. They have their own leadership, which is much more powerful. I mean, the existence of an imam has much stronger sort of political and religious leadership. But again, even there, they don't really have one anymore. They have the ayatollahs, etc., but not imams anymore. So that idea has kind of receded into history to some extent.
And is the call for the kind of resurgence for caliphate also kind of a slightly kind of sentimental or nostalgic appeal of an idea of, and we go and we visit Spain, we look at the place, the bathhouse, the caliphs, and we look about caliphate having power and influence, and at least on first glance, unity. Although you dig deep, you find, of course, the reality of history. But the idea of some golden past in which Muslim and Muslims stood shoulder to shoulder against an external world, that itself has quite a lot of power.
No, you're absolutely right. I think it is this idea of seeing Islam through very much rose-tinted spectacles in this way, and the idea of a golden age. I mean, especially the time of the first four caliphs, the rightly guided, the Rashidun as they're called. Was seen as a golden age of Islam, where it was massive empire, hugely successful, had no power compared to it. So people do often look back to that time and so you're absolutely right. The resonance of the caliph is the idea, like, this is bringing us back to how Islam used to be.
Yeah.
But in practical, real terms, I think that's quite a different thing. I think.
Yeah. Thank you. It gives us a bit of an insight into why people would use that. And that just the very last thing I was wondering.
Yeah.
The reporting we've had of this very much in the Western media seems to have been slightly fearful of this idea of a caliphate. Has that, do you think, been the same as the reception in much of, say, the Arab world or the other parts of the Islamic world?
No, not really. I think it's again, it's this new caliph, al-Baghdadi. Has very little weight outside of this new what's now called the Islamic State. I think that's
right. Yeah.
Outside of that, it has very little weight at all. And I mean, there are other caliphs around. I mean, there's a caliph who lives in London at the moment, but that's part of the Ahmadiyya sect, who are not recognised as Orthodox Muslims. So I don't think it's something. And again, there has been. I mean, Osama bin Laden never referred to himself as a caliph, but he suggested that Mullah Omar of the Taliban was a caliph. So there are again occasionally these people who either claim to be caliphs or are nominated as caliphs, but they have very few followers outside of their own particular.
So the kind of reason that was taken so seriously and got so much newsprint and so much kind of airtime in Europe and North America was that it kind of resonated with fears or issues about what's happening in Iraq and the like.
Yes.
But actually, therefore in the Arab world, it wasn't seen as something that was on the rise and potentially going to kind of change Islam in very radical ways.
Yeah, I think it's one of the things that will keep recurring, and I think it's again, having the role of a caliph gives you the legitimacy to declare jihad, and the success of the caliph will depend upon the military success. I mean, if this state is able to grow, then that may then be a greater concern. But if it doesn't, then his leadership would probably not go beyond the boundaries of this new state.
So it's kind of stand or fall in terms of the success of the organisation that kind of he stands at the head of.
Yes, that's right. Yes.
Okay, that's a lot clearer. Thank you, Ray.